All right. We've got some very interesting moments here on this show. Probably in the last 5 minutes. Ratna Pathak Shah is waiting for the last 15 minutes for me to get my tech ready. In the meantime, I just want to rant for, I think the Delhi government is just the best ever. The Delhi High Court, that is, coming up with this idea that if you are in a car alone, you must still wear the mask. I am begging all the citizens of India, stop with this mask paranoia and madness. This is a thing that will just go away with the organic way that it will happen, as it always happens with viruses. I think we're wasting too much time with anxiety and paranoia. I would like to address the government and talk to them about the other philosophy which they're not looking at, which is basically that there's all this stuff that they're doing, lockdown, shutting everybody, killing everybody. It's making no sense. It's still here and it'll continue to be here and it'll stop on its own when it does. So in the meantime, let's introduce Ratna Pathak Shah, because this is her show and I'm already running late. Ratna, welcome to this horrible podcast with this horrible man. I'm so sorry that my tech has failed and my 8 people here couldn't do a better job, but I'm on somebody else's phone. So if I disappear in the middle, don't get upset. Probably you won't get upset, but that's another story.
How are you doing? Be prepared for everything when dealing with you, isn't it, Cyrus?
Listen, I worked with your husband when I was only 13 or 14, and that changed my life completely. He scarred me forever.
You were smackable at that point.
I was highly smackable. Nothing has changed. They did bully me quite a bit. Listen, there's so much to talk about, but can we go back? Since I don't have my glasses and I can't read properly here, can we go back in time and start at the beginning? You come from a theatre background, body of work, you've survived so many years. Not to say that your age is an issue, because you look lovely and I'm sure you're under 40. But having said that, you have survived many decades and, not just survived, you've been there, right there in the front. So let's go right back to the beginning. I think it's your mom, legendary Dina Pathak, where it all starts. So you tell us.
Yeah, so I grew up in the backstage, in the green rooms of several theatres in Mumbai, I feel, or in rehearsal spaces. My mum, as you know, used to act on Gujarati stage at that time. And there would be shows every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'd sort of go with her and just hang around backstage. I hated the plays she did. All those Guju plays, full-on melodramas with my mum either doing the beating or getting beaten, usually the second. I was fed up of watching her cry. So I just never went outside into the theatre to see anything that she did. But backstage was fascinating. I just loved it. My favorite, of course, was Tejpal. I feel as if that's sort of second home to me, because rehearsals and shows and everything happened around Tejpal. One of the first plays I ever did also, we did shows in Tejpal. So Tejpal was home, very much so. So yeah, it was a theatre background. It was a theatre upbringing. Film came into it much later. My mother started doing films very much later in her career. But to start with, it was all theatre. And it was fantastic, because I'm talking of a time when Bombay had really vibrant theatre in 4 different languages every week. There was Marathi, which was, of course, the most popular one. There was Gujarati, which was basically bad copies of the Marathi stuff that they were doing. And they were really bad. I mean, I cringe when I think of the kind of plays she had to act in. But yeah, the Hindi plays that Satyadev Dubey did were very, very interesting, very different from what was happening elsewhere. Very cheap, very poor, but really, really vibrant with ideas and staging. And then there was the English theatre also. I can't say I was too thrilled with that, because
go ahead, abuse the English theatre. I have no problem.
No. I mean, I don't like to abuse anyone without reason, but this particular
This was about abuse.
Huh?
This was all about abuse. Don't hold back. Ratna, don't hold back. Tell us your views on English theatre. Please, I'm dying to hear. Especially back in the 70s, 80s,
Yes, it was so wannabe. I'm afraid it still is. A lot of it is. Sorry, but we are just desperately trying to be white and somehow become something like Broadway. But what's worse is we don't want to put in the work, the kind of rehearsal that's required to get the kind of polish that's required for a fancy show. We don't want to go there. We want to just do a little bit of gochi and, just see to it that something will get across. And our audience at that point had never seen a well-done play, frankly, except those who did go abroad. They didn't know what they were getting into. So they looked at this shit and said, wow, wonderful, fantastic. They all speak English and they can remember so many lines. My goodness, how wonderful. So yeah, so it was really very much.
Are you saying Evita sucked?
I didn't see Evita, so I don't know what happened. By then, I'd just given up on it completely.
So what you're saying is they tried to copy the West, but they
Yeah.
didn't the detailing and the you know, it
And
looked
the
like an
skills,
unfinished job.
just the skills, the acting required, the dancing required. You can't have a bunch of fat people going "Nee," and expect to, do a chorus
Ratna,
line.
what's wrong with fat people? How mean?
Fat people who move beautifully, all for you, all for you. Baman Irani moves gorgeously, and he's not what
And
you'd
he's
call
fat.
thin, even if you don't want to call him fat.
He's
But
fattish.
he moves like a dream. There's nothing about fat people. I mean, the fat was a poor selection, untrained people trying to wiggle a leg and get away with it. No, I don't buy that. So I found that painful. Also, I found that most of the plays they did had no real connection to me. So I found that a bit tiresome. But the Hindi theatre of Dubai and the Marathi theatre that I saw at that time were great influences. And the Gujarati theatre, which told me what not to do. Fantastic. I'm
So what?
always thankful to them.
Let's understand. You've given us a very important lesson here for those who don't understand the theatre world of Mumbai. So Gujarati and English theatre were non-progressive, wannabe sort of things, copying people, and Marathi and Hindi were the actual, taking the art form further and finding organic and new things.
Yes, yes, I would think so. Definitely. At least they were all going for original writing. That's very important. Marathi plays were all originally written. And Gujarati copied from Marathi. Whatever the Marathis did 1 month, next month the Gujus had done it already.
But you all had better budgets.
Huh?
Gujarati stage had better budgets than Marathi
Better
stage.
budgets.
So
they
unlike
had,
English stage, you would look better, I would presume.
yes, slightly. And they had better lighting because you see, they did shows only 3 times a week. Don't forget that. And they got the theater the whole day. Whereas a Marathi play has to do 3 shows in a day. So you've got no time for setup and all that. You just come, you put on something on the stage, you bung a few lights on and go. You don't have time for fluff. Whereas the Gujarati theatre did. They didn't spend any time on the meat. They only spent time on the fluff. Marathi theatre, on the other hand, spent only time on the meat and not on the fluff. So I wish there was a wire media, but it is happening now for sure.
So what did Ratna do as a young girl? What was the first play that you did then? And how old were you when you actually set foot on stage, not backstage?
I had the strangest experience. I used to be a great mimic. So my family tells me. I don't remember too much of that. But they tell me that I used to be able to mimic all my teachers. Now, that's not tough. Everyone mimics teachers. So what was so great about it? I don't know. But they decided that I was very good at it. So I should go on in a fancy dress competition. I must have been about 5 or 6, and they made me dress up as one of my teachers and bunged me on stage. And I saw this crowd in front of me and I just froze. And I said, I don't want to be here. I turned around and ran off. My very, very painful and very, very
But you were
embarrassing.
used to it. You were used to your mom and the whole culture. And all. How can you suddenly, that doesn't, I mean,
Yeah, only goes to show how difficult it is now to stand up there with this dark crowd in front of you, all looking at you. Usually I was the looker, now I was not the looky, as it were. So it was terribly, very, very disconcerting. And I was deeply embarrassed because I think by then I'd already realized that I like this whole business of the theater. So then my aunt, there goes nepotism. Remember the values of nepotism? My aunt.
I'm a big fan. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan of nepotism. It
I'm,
gets a
I'm
bad
a
name.
product of it. So
And why not?
my aunt was doing a play in Gujarati for a school, a children's play, and they needed somebody to do a little dance at the end. So that I could manage. And getting into costume, that was such fun. And get somebody did my hair for me, and somebody applied a little, that silly red paint, red rouge and bright lipstick and one tika, and that blew me away. I said, okay, now this is nice. And I managed to go on and do it properly. So as it happened, I went to a school where they did absolutely no theater at all, no school concerts, nothing. We focused on academics and being good girls. We had lessons in morality. We had a saying put up in the class: chastity is a precious diadem. do not lose it. So,
But
that
you
was
had
the
a
mood.
choice. In my case, chastity was not a choice. It was just the way it was. But so
It
they
was no
actually
choice
told
for
you.
any of us. But this ruler on our head saying, chastity. And did you know, they used to have classes. We had home science classes in school in which we had to do laundry. We had to take 5 little white hankies with different stains, an ink stain, a haldi stain, um, grease stain, and blood stain. So blood was hard to get by. I pricked my finger and got that. But we had to go to school and wash clothes.
Blood
They were
state.
training us. Yes, they were training us to be good girls, good ladies. And that's all they focused on: academics and being a lady. Nothing else. Girls did not require anything. No sport, no art, no theater, little bit of music. That's my
And
education.
is it fair to say that all the ladies who are products of that school continue with the chastity thing for the rest of their lives?
Sure, we didn't. We dumped that as soon as we could. I mean, they were asking for trouble now, having this kind of stuff up on the wall. You want to find out what is not chastity
It's almost like
immediately.
an oppressive government. The more you repress people, the more they sort of, boomerang the other way. I would think that it's the
Absolutely.
worst thing to do.
And it's strange, isn't it? How
Yeah.
people who want to establish authority, like many people we know today,
Oh
uh,
God, Ruby.
right. So why don't they get the point that it hasn't worked in the past? It can only work up to a point. This ruler business.
Yeah. This is why, coming back to the lockdown, I just hate the fascist head of all this. The
Mm.
police coming and screaming on the PA, banging their sticks really loudly. I mean, it's like, and now we know what Kashmir is like. One of my Kashmiri friends was telling me in the first lockdown that you have no idea. This is the first exposure you had to police being bullies and this kind of thing and all that. But God, it's just horrible. It just seems
Yes.
unnecessary, beyond the point. I know there's an epidemic and all, but it just seems too aggressive. The attitudes of the authorities and the people who are supposed to make decisions. But let's get back to Ratna. I'll
No,
rant
but no, no,
about
no.
Ratna.
I want to say something. What is worse, this aggressive police business we have dealt with before. We know that cops are aggressive in our country because that's how they're trained to be. There's a problem, of course, with us because we never listen to anything that's been told to us. We want to do everything according to the way we want to do. But what really is worse is that these people genuinely believe that their way is the only way to go about things, and and they cannot see they're not spending enough time on and resources on what is required. Bump up the health services now. Get people organized better. The last
They're running
lockdown
out of
doesn't seem to.
vaccines.
Yeah, we haven't learned anything from
And
the
they run,
last lockdown.
no,
No,
no, but hello.
we are running out of
Ratna,
food, vaccines.
we're exporting vaccines as we speak. So if it's a demand supply issue, then should we not be exporting? If you're running out of vaccines, especially in places like Maharashtra where it's really high. So, I mean, what do we know about governance? But I'm just saying. But let's get back to your part. Otherwise, we'll keep going and firing salvos at people that matter, but we aren't able to bring
At
down.
blocks of stone.
Um,
At blocks of stone.
yeah, it's really
We are
a waste
firing
of time.
salvos on blocks of stone.
Absolutely. So no, let me understand now that you were in doing small things like a dance here, a dance there. But how did you become this thespian? This before you got into films and all that? Where did you blossom? There must be in one play, one moment where it all changed for you.
Uh, yeah. Again in school, as it happens with so many people, they would finally, when I was in my class 9 or 10, maybe. I'm an old SSC pro. Oops, sorry, I need to put that off.
It's the government calling.
They heard me. We've been trying to look for a new production, and 1984 was one of them. And my God, my heart just sank when it's so scary and so much like what we are going
19,
through now.
yeah. The
1984,
George
George
Orwell.
Orwell's.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's been made into a play, so we were looking at it, but it's just so depressing because that's what we are going through now.
It's all coming true, is it?
Absolutely. And anyway, as you said, let's not go there. So
No, but
yeah.
art imitating life is a very scary thing, and vice versa.
Mm.
Yeah. But I want to know, so what was that moment where you crossed the line, where you crossed the
Yes.
Rubicon and no looking back? You said it was intimidating the first time, in spite of coming from that background, your sister, your mother, your aunt, etc., etc. So when was the moment when Ratna said, okay, this is my spot, I belong here?
Right. So in school, finally in class 9 or something, they decided that maybe we should look at theater and see if something can be done. So they had a whole set of monologues that they got us to do. And I decided to do a monologue um, based on Jhansi Ki Rani, Lakshmi Bai. And I asked my mom if she had anything that would work. And she told a friend of hers who was a writer, and he wrote a little piece for me, a monologue. You see, nepotism, how wonderfully it works. So I got my Jhansi Ki Rani little piece, and I went on and rehearsed it a lot. My mom helped, and then I performed it, and I really felt comfortable. Most important because I was prepared. The first time I was completely unprepared, and I didn't know what I was getting into. Now I did, and I had prepared. I had rehearsed. I was sure of what I was going to do. I had words to support me. And it was just bliss. And there was my school teachers, those who didn't really think me worth much, suddenly looking at me in a different way. My higher KG teacher, Miss Keshwala, she actually called me to her classroom and said, Ratna, I'm so impressed with you. I didn't know that you could act like this, etc., etc. So it's just fantastic. I mean, suddenly I was a different person. I was being looked at in a different way. And I really, really enjoyed being on stage and being someone else. So I think it was then that I decided that's
Ratna,
it.
what about the audience? The audience reaction, does that play a part? A lot of people initially, if they get a buzz, there's no looking back, and those who don't get a buzz very often seem to not be able to deal with it and never go back.
True, the audience was very receptive to me, but that was partly because I think I was good. I was well prepared. I don't know what kind of acting I did,
Yeah,
but I
but
was well prepared.
school kids can be really cruel as well. They could be very
Yeah, oh
supportive, but they could
yes,
also tear you down.
yes,
I can
yes,
remember a few examples in our schools growing up. So I'm just thinking that in a way you're thrown into the lions and you just have
yes,
to perform. And either they like you, in which case, of course, you're, the ants pants, or they don't. So that you must have
yes,
just got great feedback immediately.
yes, I did. But I have to say, largely from the older kids and from the teachers. The younger kids, I think it just sort of left them cold. But remember, we were trained to be good ladies, so we didn't boo, we didn't throw tomatoes. Unlike a school where you went to, I'm sure that you had to deal with a much more visceral audience reaction. I
I
got
slept through school, so my memories are very little. I slept through my entire life actually. I don't know what happened. I was like Alzheimer's before Alzheimer's. But sorry, let's get back to you. Yeah. So they were
yes,
very
it was good fun.
supportive. You had your moment.
I had
And
my moment, and I was
did your
hooked.
mom get did your mom
Sorry.
get to watch you? Did your mom watch you on stage?
No, 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 she couldn't come in. I think parents were not allowed that day. It was just for a class thing. But suddenly it got me going, because the next thing I knew, I had written and put together a play along with the rest of the girls. And we did it as part of the assembly, school assembly. And I actually found that play again some years ago in my old papers. And it wasn't badly done. It was something about theft in the school, and the head girl comes up and runs a little you know, uh, like a little court drama, right, in assembly. And we did it as part of assembly wearing school uniform. So the girls really thought that maybe this is actually happening. So, yeah, so we started doing all kinds of things. But then that was it. The school said, no, 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 no. Now you're in your 11th class. Now you have to study for SSC. So that was that, all finished. But I was hooked, definitely.
But then obviously you turned towards your mom's professional theater outfit as well at
Well,
that point,
partly
or
because that was the way in which I could get a job in the theater. Again, my aunt was doing a Gujarati play, and they needed somebody to help with the costumes. So I got in that way. And then I did a little bit of backstage. And then I did some, sort of worked around the performance bit. But finally, IPTA was doing IPTA, the Indian People's Theatre Association in Mumbai. They were doing a play, and one small part I was asked to do. And but again, there also I was doing costumes with and I've always done plays where I'm not just acting, but I'm doing a lot of things around also. So I think the
Isn't
theater
that part?
part of it is what got me.
Yeah. Isn't that part of the theater that you have to do everything sometimes? That's the way it pans out for a lot of
Oh,
people.
yes, amateur theater, definitely. But in the professional theater, you have people coming in 10 minutes before the show and saying, Mata costume kut hai, and where is my stuff? And so you have big prima donnas there also.
Name names. Ratna, name names. We'll expose them.
Arey bichare, they are dead and gone also. We can't name names.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Oops. All right.
ancient, don't
Okay.
forget.
All right. No, you're not. You're not ancient. You're like wine, getting better with every year. So now let's talk about the jump then. So you started doing professional plays, etc. You got noticed, and then where was the
Hardly
jump to television
professional,
and film?
Cyrus. Hardly professional. Where's the professional theater in Bombay? Except for Gujarati Marathi. Everything else is more or less
No, but you're
amateur.
taking it seriously, right? You're
Yes,
taking it seriously. You're an
yes,
actor.
yes,
So,
yes, yes.
in that sense, you found your space.
Yes,
And then how does the jump happen when you...
and I would go so far as to say that the amateurs take theatre much more seriously than the professionals do. It means a lot more to them. For the professionals, it's the pay packet finally that matters, and the showing off. I've seen a lot of that, but for the
Who's the worst
amateurs,
actor
it's the
you ever worked with?
worst actor. Haila. I can't think. There was one guy. I can't even remember his name. But he'd stare only at one. We had to do a love scene, and he only looked into one eye. So it was very disconcerting. Try it with somebody, try to do a very intimate scene with a guy looking only into one eye of yours. That was really, really disconcerting. But by and large, I've been very lucky, I would say, with actors. Some actors are difficult in the sense that they don't learn lines. My poor mother was one of them. She had such a problem with lines. But she was so magnificent when she got them right. So everyone forgave her. But working with Ma was tough because she kept forgetting lines and you didn't know what to do, whether you should say your line or wait for her to remember hers. So yeah. Uh, but what I find really, really off-putting is actors who are on the phone until 5 minutes before the shot or 5 minutes before entry. I've seen that. Dozens of actors, dozens stand backstage with a thing like this just before their cue and walk in. Oh, that makes me mad. But
Or they could
I
be
mean,
genius. They could be complete, unbelievably
balls
relaxed because they're so good. It's like Mozart, just turns up and writes an opera in 20 minutes.
doesn't work like that. Doesn't
No?
work like that. The guys who do this rubbish it shows in their work. They can fool you a couple of times, but they will not fool you by over and over again
Cell
because they'll
phone,
do the same thing over and over again. Now, what else can they do, poor things?
cell phone etiquette is just the worst, isn't it? When you just think about it, whoever you're working with, I have Kunal's here, whose phone keeps going off really loudly. It's so irritating after some time, it invades your space. And think of it also, I remember your husband going berserk at experimental ones, I think a Moliere collection, or what was it? Chekhov, maybe, I can't remember. And somebody's phone went off and they started talking. And he just very sarcastically said, no, finish your conversation, we'll hold the play for you. And of course, everybody started clapping and laughing at that guy who finally got understood the work. But he was actually talking. He was talking in that small experimental. He was almost as loud as Nasir. I mean, it was like two actors.
People talk in Prithvi, which is even smaller and more intimate. And in fact, there is one time I remember this lady said, હું નાટક જોઉં છું, Bhavini Ben છે ને, એક minute, and passed it on to Bhavini Ben. And Bhavini Ben had a nice long chat and passed it back to whatever Ben she was. I mean, it was astounding. We were watching the play while all this was happening. We were not on stage, which is why one couldn't say very much except shh. But my favorite response to that is Zakir Hussain. He was doing a show in Prithvi playing the tabla. And of course, some idiot, his phone went off. And Zakir continued and he said, if it's for me, I'm busy. And he just continued. So,
yeah. It's amazing. Ratna, listen, we're running out of time because we have to go into break. So I need to put the entire career into perspective in 3 minutes. And you only reach school and a play, Jhansi Ki Raani, and then maybe some play which you can't even remember properly, where you may have directed girls. We have to, how did you get into television and film then? How did that happen?
Actually, I did a fair amount of theatre with Satyadev Dubey, and his company, Theatre Unit. Again, nothing very, very good in terms of the plays, but it gave me a great chance to learn how to act. And then I went away to the NSD for 3 years, which was also fantastic. It was the most brilliant experience ever. Again, I can't say I learned a lot as an actor because we never had any acting teachers. Can you imagine a school, a theater school without acting teachers? I mean,
Who taught you?
we had people on the payroll. We had some people, but it was as good as not having any. And any actor floating by would just be called in, come and do a little workshop. So you had somebody come in and tell you to do something in one way, and 5 minutes later, another person would come in and tell you to do something exactly the opposite, etc., etc. So we were very confused. When I came out of the NSD, I was thoroughly confused. But I got work with Dubey. I got no film or television work at all. At all. I'm talking about, I came back from the NSD in 1981. 82, I got a film called Heat and Dust in a blink and miss it
Yes.
role. And
Shashi Kapoor.
Shashi and Julie
Yeah.
Christie, Merchant
Correct.
Ivory Productions. Great time. We had a wonderful time and all that, but nothing in the part. And then the second thing, same year, Mandi, Shyam Benegal's Mandi. Again, blink and miss it. So I got really nothing roles. And then I got nothing at all till 1984, when the most miraculous thing ever happened to me. And I'm talking about this 80 phase. All the films, all the so-called new films, alternative films, etc., were being cast literally in my house because Nasir was acting in practically half of them. So all of them are sitting in my house and discussing casting, but nobody thinks of casting me. It was
But
quite
what about
extraordinary.
nepotism? You had
Huh?
nepotism in your family. What is Nasir doing?
What? Sorry, say that again.
Nepotism was like your aunt helped you. What happened to nepotism now?
Yeah, man, Nasir is not very keen on nepotism. That's the
What the
problem.
hell is wrong with him?
Yeah, terrible, terrible. But also, I didn't want to be passed on, you know. I mean, those guys could see me. They came and saw all our plays and said, wonderful, wonderful backstage, but they never cast me. So it was quite extraordinary. Anyway,
Wow.
finally, but it was good for me, finally, because what happened was Anand Mahindru came along with this television serial called Idhar Udhar. I'm talking 1984. First time we were doing serials in India. There were a couple of things like Hum Log and Bunyad. And here was somebody trying to do a comedy. And they wanted me to act in it. I, who had done no comedy at all. And what's better, they came to me with this script and they said there are two parts. There's one part of this very strict advertising agency kind of person. And there's another part of this ditzy, dumb blonde kind of air hostess. And we want Supriya and you in it. So I said, oh my God, 100% Supriya will get the ditzy, dumb blonde and I'll have to do the strict ad type. And Anand said, I want you to play the dumb blonde. And I almost, hugged him because I was so excited. Somebody had thought of me in a different way. I said, sure, I'm going to do it. Of course, I'm going. I didn't know anything about how to do a funny part. But we went along. Everyone was learning on the job. I was also learning on the job. And eventually it worked out just fine. And why I say it was miraculous was that comedy saved me big time, big time. If I had been just a dramatic actress, I would have been a painful actress, I'm sure of it. Comedy showed me so many, I mean, it just opened out the world for me. I'm
And for a lot of
so
people, they
grateful.
probably think of you as comedy as your thing, Sarabhai versus Sarabhai. There's quite a bit actually in
Yes,
your collection.
yes.
Yeah.
But on
All right.
stage and everywhere else, I did nothing except serious, grim parts. And I thought that's the kind of parts I wanted to do. Brecht and Shakespeare, Lady Macbeth, that kind of stuff. I was very limited in my thoughts, yeah. But comedy came and just completely flushed out the rubbish from me and saved me.
So is there a preferred genre or nothing like that?
As something to watch, very much preferred. I'd happily watch a comic something than the other. But I have to say, not Indian comedy. I'm very, very put off by most of what I see. Really.
Racist, regionalist.
And
Fair enough.
unwitty. No expenditure of energy on wit or on ideas. It's all the crudest thing. The fat person, the thin person, the
Man in drag.
huh?
The man in drag is a flag holding moment. You have
and
to have
and
that.
and putting down the other. You see all of Marathi comedy, for example. It's like, hey kai, tu kasa hai? It's that kind of humor. Gujarati humor is always, I am better than you are. You understand? I am better than you are. That's their mood all the time. And come on, it gets tiring. We need a little more variety. And we have almost no one with the gentleness and the innocence of a Buster Keaton or a Charlie Chaplin or even a
Now
Jim
you're using
Carrey.
references even older than me. I'm very impressed. Buster
Okay.
Keaton, Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, but they are my references, darling. That's my generation. You may be younger or may
Your
call yourself
husband,
young.
I remember your husband was the first time I worked with him in a movie called Jalwa. I was trying to, I thought, Bollywood guy and all that would know all this. I had no idea who Nasir was in the sense of background. Just knew that he was an actor and all that. And so I remember asking him, so who are your favorite actors? Thinking he'll, come up with some very, contemporary names. And he went for like, was it Buster Keaton or Spencer Tracy? I remember. And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
He pulled out some 2-3 rabbits from the hat. And then suddenly I realized, okay, this guy is something else. Very different from the stereotype that you, as a South Bombay boy, had of any Bollywood guy, like that not very well read. And I had no idea that he was who he was, to be honest. I apologize, Nasir, when you watch this. Uh, Absolutely, came back with a different perspective. And he was nice to only me. He screamed at a lot of people on that set, I can tell you, but he was really nice to me. Taught me how to play pool as well.
But
Yeah.
that
Anyway,
film again, I think, is a much underrated film and one in
yeah.
which Nasir is really, really good. I very much enjoy watching Jalwa. I watch it off and on. And again, he's stuck with the serious actor tag. So people don't really use him enough for comedy. And I think he really has a skill for that, which doesn't get explored enough.
It was a pretty quick film, Things happened from start to finish.
Yeah,
I think, as you said, it was underrated, perhaps ahead of its time.
very much so.
Maybe
Very
seven, eight
much
years
so.
later, it would have, done even better. But anyway, let's get back. We've got to take a quick break, and when we come back, Silvery is going to join us. A huge fan of Indian theatre. He's Punjabi, but he only watches Marathi theatre for some reason, so he'll talk to us about that. There's so much more to talk about in your career, but we don't have time because you have achieved too much. Never achieved so much because we can't fit it in. I'm sorry about that, Ratna. We're taking a break and we'll come back.
Or,
Ratna
or,
Pathak Shah.
or don't talk too much about early.
No, but that's the fun part because everyone can Google your movies. Everybody knows lipstick. They've given me all these movies. I'm saying, but that's the easy part. Why would she talk about that? It's so, everyone can just Google it and find out about the film or your quotes and everything else. But now we know that your first role was Jhansi Ki Raani, where you were prepared. And the first time you went on stage, actually, had cold feet. We know
Terrible.
so many interesting things about you and that you're still a virgin.
Thanks to my Dasturji Minochar Homji. He told me how to do it. And immaculate conception, darling. I've got two sons, but
All right.
you know
All
how
right.
it works.
You can start your own religion now. Okay, we'll take a break and then come back.
Good. Thank you.
Silvery, join us.
Hi.
Can we actually take a break? I need to use
Yeah.
the
Good. Go. Don't worry.
Yes, Trauma.
Kunal, you want to start without me? You can shoot with the. There are bits without me. You can start.
Yeah. So, Cyrus, you want to tell the audience where you are right now?
Right. I'm at the moment in a studio which I can't mention because it's not very clear whether we can work here or not. Apparently, we can work. TV is allowed. And after Saturday, I think you have to get those tests done, even for studio work. So it's a work in progress trying to figure out what's going on. But now you know what it's like to be like a refugee or in a country torn by civil war, because you suddenly have all these little things like we can't get water at the moment. We all thought we'd pick up vada pav, which is famous in the area we're in, but that guy's gone. He's been taken away by the police. He's in lockdown. So small things like that have just offset our entire thinking from the morning. And it's just amazing how you take all this for granted. You grew up with this guy in that area. He's famous. Everybody knows that. So water bottles, the shops are open, but now there's no provision store really closed. So they've got to go far just to get water bottles and things
Wait,
like that.
the
So, yeah.
this famous vada pav guy has shut for good, or he's shut for now?
No, so we couldn't find him apparently. Now
Okay.
it's a little unclear for vendors. Yeah, what is essential? So are the street guys allowed? In some areas, I've seen them. What little traveling I've done from Monday, but frankly speaking, a lot of the guys have just disappeared. Maybe it's not worth their while because there's no crowd to buy the wares, so it's not worth their while to stand there. I don't know. My good friend Anup, who owns this studio, is going to go and find out more. Or maybe he'll start selling vada pav. But Ratna is back. So, Silvery, let's get on with it.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, ma'am. Very nice to meet you.
Don't call her ma'am, she'll slap you. Never call people ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Ratna's
The
having
first.
a glass
Ratna
of
is fine.
wine.
Ratna is fine. I won't bite your head off. Don't worry.
Okay. Thank you, Ratna.
Is that
The
red wine
first
or
one.
white wine?
Pani, just using the
Oh.
bottle.
Oh, okay.
Arey, wine
Hey.
shop closed now just now. Very big problem.
They
Didn't stock up.
shut the, they
Last
shut the
time
booth
also
bars.
they didn't give us enough time to stock up. This time also they've not.
Correct. Correct. And we were witness to a bar, whatever it's called, a booze shop being shut very viciously. They do, aren't they an essential service? People need their drink. Silvery, have you stocked up on booze?
Not this time. When the lockdown started back in last year, that time we had a bit. This time not at all. No.
Okay. Whatever,
Okay.
we've got to
I guess.
manage.
Yeah.
In my lanes, we do a lot of exchanging. My neighbor here with me. Yeah, it becomes like the old days when, rations were less, you wouldn't get sugar. In a way, it's good because we've all become closer. In this 1 year, the lane which never talked to its members anymore, like for the last 20 years, there's been a shift in inter-building politics, but now it's back the way it was in my youth. So that's one good thing that's come out of it.
I remember the days of prohibition in Bombay. I remember there was a party and my dad used to drink and would need his drink every day. So he would organize the booze for himself. And they were all bootleggers that you had to contact. So I remember this party for which a dalda ka, that big 15-20 liter wala ek tin aata tha with a small cap on top. Dalda. And वो cap निकाल करके अंदर से सब bottles निकलती थी. One after
What
the
are you
other.
saying?
That whole tin would be full of booze bottles in various shapes and sizes. Yeah. So that's how booze would be transported. Dalda ke tin mein.
See, Silvery, this is what we want from Ratna. Stories that, make you question yourself properly. You never thought of dalda as a thing which would take out booze from, growing up.
See, that's the problem. You haven't dealt with prohibition. You haven't got your act together. If you go to Gujarat, everyone has their act together. Gujarat mein kya nahi chalega, bolo.
But Ratna, when I go to Ahmedabad, they immediately ask me, the cabbie asks you as you enter, Su Joyage, Country Joyage, Su Lause, and all that. I'm like, what? They always have a menu.
Of course. But we know how much money is being made out of this, no? And by whom?
Apparently, prohibition is the best way for liquor industry to survive.
Absolutely.
All over the world, not just here.
Why do you think the politicians are so keen on putting on, enforcing prohibition right, left and center? Bihar mein kar diya, Gujarat mein kar diya, kitna maal ban raha hai?
Haryana, you enter Faridabad from Delhi, Haryana border, and immediately there's like Thunder Beer posters, and it's the prohibition. It's so nice. The way it is. Sorry, Silvery, come on. Time for questions?
Sure. The first question comes in from Abhik Ghosh. He says, hello, Ratna ma'am. A Walk in the Woods is one of the best plays I have ever seen. Any plans on directing a feature film?
Feature film? Hi, Tova. No way.
Of a Walk in the Woods or just generally?
In general, but also of Walk in the Woods if it becomes
we
a
actually thought of it. We thought quite hard about it, and because it works so nicely, it's an India-Pakistan kind of a story, and it works so beautifully for our context. But of course, there was trouble getting permission, and now doing a India-Pakistan story where we don't want to blame Pakistan entirely. How can we do that? Now we can't. So there's no question of doing Walk in the Woods, but even any other film, hard for me to do. It's a different mindset. It requires a different way of looking at the world. I suppose it could be cultivated, but that doesn't come to me naturally. And then it would be just a zid. अरे बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो अच्छी तरह फिल्म बना सकते हैं, उनको बनाने दो ना. What's the use of my zabardasti pushing myself?
So do you want to or do you not want to?
I don't want to, because you need to create a whole universe, and you need to invest in that creation. You need to get so many people to work with you and work on your wavelength.
That's hard work. I don't think I have those skills. So I'll stick with theatre.
You have the skills, but you don't want the pressures, what you're saying, of doing all this and putting it all together.
No, even
Because-
even the skills, when I sit down to think in terms of a scene, how to shoot this scene, I can see it visually because I'm used to seeing things on the theatre with people. But to imagine how to see it through the camera, it's a different, as I said, way of looking at the world.
Worst director you ever worked with?
Worst director I've ever worked with. Ah. Ouch, I have to think. I've done so few things that most of them were very pleasurable. I can't think of any really bad director yet.
Okay, fair enough. Let's
My
not
goodness,
badnaam them.
what a boring
or
autobiography. What a boring autobiography I'm going to have to write. I have no shit. I have nothing to crib about, nobody to vent about.
Come on, then. When you think back, there'll be about 100 horrible moments that that things went wrong, and all. Not just directors. I'm sure there'll be enough drama in the drama that will come out.
Not really, yaar. I'm seriously thinking. I can't.
No
I can't find too many unpleasant. I can count the names of the films I've done on one hand, and television serials on the other hand. क्या उसमें बोलने का? I
No,
mean,
but
it's
they're
hard
big.
to-
The shows are big. The movies are quite iconic. So I mean, it's the quality, not the quantity,
Yes,
as Silvery says.
yes, yes.
I mean, just Sarabhai versus Sarabhai is like it's got legendary cult status. I mean, you don't need more than that. One of those things is you're set for life. Oh God, whose internet's going? Mine?
No, Ratna ma'am's.
Oh,
Hi ma'am,
thank
can you
God.
hear us?
No, she's back. No, she's not.
Yeah, you're going to start.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, she's back.
Oh, my internet is unstable.
Okay, Silvery.
Yep. Sure, ma'am. The next question
Okay.
is about.
Am I okay?
Yep,
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
in. You're in.
You're back now. Yep. The next question is about Sarabhai because our listeners would kill us if we didn't ask even one question about it. Comes in from Janil Bain. He says, "Ma'am, what was it like after doing Sarabhai? How did life change for you?"
Not much. You
Come
see,
on, Ratna.
we did
It's a huge hit.
Yeah. But darling, when we did Sarabhai 2006, when we first came on air, we were on Star 1. Nobody watched it. It was only in 4 metros. We had a TRP, and in those days, I believe TRPs were something you could trust, unlike today.
Yeah.
So in those days, we had a TRP of 0.63%. 0.63, not even 1% pura bhi nahi tha. And Comedy Challenge, which was running simultaneously, had a 9, TRP of 9. So they preferred Comedy Challenge to us. Clearly, all the metros in the country loved Comedy Challenge, hated Sarabhai. My own aunt, the one who my nepotism
Who
wali
launched
aunt,
you?
who launched me, she refused to watch Sarabhai. She said, "What is this rubbish? I don't like it." She used to watch Khichdi. She liked that one. So Sarabhai was really out of the box. First of all, people who are actually saying vicious things to each other, and you're not supposed to blame them, or they are not villains. They are the heroes of your show. That's hard to take for an Indian audience. So they found it very, very difficult. It's only when the repeats began and we went online, that's when the whole the thing took off. This Sarabhai craze that you are talking of, we
The
did not
reruns
see it, yaar.
made it. Yeah, because it reruns all the time.
Yeah.
It reran and reran and reran.
Yes. So today I can tell you, yes, I can't go into a airport without some idiot wanting to take a selfie with me or to tell me, yeah, and that's all they want to do. And selfie, madam, tak, done. Aage badho. So I say no to that.
And they break, they violate proximity, don't they?
What?
Just come and stand.
Yeah. But that I'm used to. Again, go back to my mother. My mother took me for one of her premieres. I was about 10 or 12 years old. And we were both sitting in the interval next to each other outside having a cup of tea that somebody had brought. One Gujarati gentleman. And unfortunately, it's always the Gujaratis. I'm so depressed about that. I'm half Gujarati myself. I cringe with embarrassment. But अभी क्या बोलने का, ऐसे है हम लोग. So these two guys, husband and wife, come and stand right in front of us like that, right there. And he looks down at Ma and looks at his wife. Ajo, Adina Pathak. Like, she was a turd or something like that.
They do that all the time. They identify the person on
Yeah.
the person's face. Like the person doesn't know who they are.
So many
Fun.
times they get you to sign an autograph. What's your name, please? So let's not go there.
But at least they don't call you by the wrong name.
Huh? What?
I've had to sign as Sajid Khan and Deepak Tijori and all kinds of people. So yeah, this is the end. You go home feeling really inadequate.
I have decided next time I'm going to sign as Narendra Modi or something like that.
What are you going to sign? An ordinance?
बस वो ordinance ही है सब समझ लो. But anyway,
Okay.
so I mean, I never got a sense of becoming important or anything like that. But certainly work improved. More people saw me. More people cast me in films and television. Television, I haven't been able to do anything again after Sarabhai because such poor quality work has come my way. Such poor quality. And after Sarabhai, it becomes harder to do shit. So yeah. And Sarabhai was such an organic and beautiful experience, I can't tell you. I was rehearsing for a play and Atish and JD called me up and said, we've got something for you. I'd seen them do Gujarati plays before and I really liked the work that they did. Original work for a change, with humor, with unusual ideas, new characters. I really liked what they were doing on stage. So they called me up and said they wanted to come and see me. They were thinking of something. So I said, yeah, come, I'm rehearsing. So they came. I took a break from the rehearsal, went outside. We were rehearsing in some dirty little place. And they stood outside and gave me a one-line telling of what they were thinking of. And they said, we want you to do Mrs. Sarabhai. Yes? I said, yes, 100%. Go for it. And that's it. And then we turned up on the set and met all these wonderful actors who they had put together. Atish read out the first script to us. We did the first reading amongst ourselves and we shot it. Done. It was just extraordinary. He would come with this script. He would read it out to us. We'd rehearse it. That's it. We never had to change a line in any of the scripts. He really was on a roll, Atish Kapadia. He was coming up with ideas one after the other. It was magnificent to watch that. And all of us together. It was just perfect.
Silvery.
Yeah.
There's no point
Yeah,
getting
next up.
quality people on our podcast because now we can't empathize with the kind of work they do and who they meet. Yeah. Okay, I've got to get on with this terrible shoot I'm at, Ratna. So is it okay if we say bye now?
Absolutely. If you got what you have.
I've got to earn money. I've got 2 children who are starving at home because the government put us on lockdown. So I've got to do this work on the side.
Don't use the starving angle, please. It doesn't work with you.
Oh, it's been a struggle all my life. I won't use the word mind calms, but yeah, it's something like that. But the good version. Anyway, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm sorry about the tech issues again in the beginning. Silvery is to blame, and there's a guy called Rishi who's the horror behind all this, and we'll take action against them once they have their vaccines. Because, by the way, we've run out of vaccines. My family's vaccines for this week have been cancelled. We got messages just now. So Mumbai is basically out of stock. Out of stock. There you go. Who are you going to point fingers at? Not Sarabhai and Sarabhai, I can tell you that. Yeah. Bye, Ratna. And please say hi to Imad also. We worked on a play film together. Yeah, many years ago with Suni. I can't even remember the name of the film, but it was
Little Zizou.
Little Zizou. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. It was great fun.
Very sweet film.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice
All right.
to talk to all of
Bye,
you.
everyone.
You, Antariksh. See you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
See you.